Good morning, Nathan. Left everyone muted. Hold on, let's see if Nathan wants to be unmuted for a minute.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Good morning, Nathan. How are you?
Okay, too. Baruch Hashem.
Okay, we're doing well. So slowly but surely, everyone's coming on.
Good.
Let's see how this all works. So far, so good.
This picture that you have, which yeshiva is that?
That's a good question. What college that is, Justin? You got a location on that college?
Now, this college? I actually have no idea. You know what? I was like, oh man, I hope they don't ask me that question.
There you go.
I think this will be the first time I say this. Great question. Let me get back to you on that one.
Very
Okay.
good. Good morning, Ricky. All right, Nathan, I'm gonna put you mute. I'm gonna mute you back because we're gonna get started in just a minute.
Okay, good.
All right, we will start. I'm gonna start now. I'm gonna let people in as they come along. I don't want anyone who is here on time to pay the price for everyone else. So I hope everyone can hear me. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for our first little coffee chat webinar. I want to introduce everyone. First and foremost, thank you very much for being here and welcome and happy the day before 529 College Savings Plan Day. And in just a second, I'll introduce our speaker, who is a colleague of ours, a partner of ours for a good many years, Justin Knowles from Columbia Threadneedle, and he will give us a little bit of information on 529s. Really glad everyone is here, and I'm just going to pass it right over to Justin. Afterwards, we're not going to, for the sake of time for everyone, we're not going to take questions today, but certainly any questions you have, call me, email me, text me, whatever it may be. And without any further ado, I'm going to pass it on over to Justin.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for allowing me a couple moments of your time today. I really do appreciate it. As Randy said, I'm Justin Knowles. I work with Columbia Threadneedle. Columbia is an asset manager based out of Boston. We have 17 offices around the world, 750 different investment professionals, and manage over $450 billion in assets under management. Our research intensity, our resources like what we're going to go through today, are really built towards the goals of sharing in your success, both our shareholders and our advisors, right? Really, without your success, there's no possible way that Columbia can succeed. So this is one of my favorite things to do, is help educate clients around different issues and questions that we have coming in from the field. So I am just a voice box of much more brilliant people in my home office in Boston. So as I joked up front, if you do have questions along the way here, please do take a note and pass them along to Randy after. If they're intricate, if they're detailed, we're going to get back to you with an answer directly from our professionals to really help you understand some of the issues that you might be having or anything that wasn't totally clear. So today, what I'm trying to do in the next couple moments is debunk, if you will, some major myths with 529 college saving plans. And you might note Columbia Threadneedle's The Future Scholar 529 plan is a cog in Randy and David's planning machine. So I won't belabor the point, but I really should start by framing what is a 529 plan and why are they important. So college costs continue to rise, and we may have a reprieve from that right now, so we'll see what happens in the next couple of years, but they've continued to rise. They're an absorbent, and without the right planning, it can be really, really difficult to pay once you get there. So one of the best times to consider a 529, right now. Whether your child's in 8th grade, 8 years old, or 8 months old, there's always a good opportune time to begin planning around a 529 college savings plan. So what is it? It's a qualified tuition savings plan under what's called Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code. really for our purposes today, for your purposes, we'll call it a 529 plan. So a 529 plan provides investors with a smarter way to pay for their child's college education costs. There's tax advantages, there's gift and estate planning benefits, there's flexibility, there's a little more control. So 529 plans have become really, really popular, easily the most popular tool when it comes to saving specifically for children's education costs. But however, like I mentioned, 529 plans have been in existence since 1996, and there's some myths and misconceptions that have continued to come up over the years. And Randy and David wanted to make sure I cleared those up for you today. So one of my favorite TV shows as a kid was Fact or Fiction. So I'd like to walk you through some of these fact or fictions ideas today as well. The first myth that I hear constantly, I actually was just speaking about this to my older brother this morning when he asked me what he was doing today. My older brother now has 4 children to plan for college. When I told him I was doing something on 529, I worked through a couple of these myths with him to give him a better idea. The first one was the first thing he said. The first myth I want to cover today, I can only use a 529 plan to pay for college tuition. So the myth is I can only use a 529 plan to pay for college tuition. That's not completely true. Qualified higher education expenses is the term we'll use today. Those are available through your 529 contributions. That's what you can pay, qualified higher education expenses. That is tuition, but it's also a bit more. You're talking fees for education, room and board, books, supplies, computers, internet usage. If you have children with special needs, there's also some additional services you can pay through for your 529 as well. And it's not just four-year universities. It's also a common misconception. You're talking community colleges. You can use these funds for graduate schools, vocational trade schools. There's more good news, not to bog things down with policy and tax acts. But in the Secure Act of 2017, 529s were expanded for tax-free withdrawals to cover qualifying apprenticeship programs, or even fund and pay for student loan payments. Now that's up to a lifetime of about $10,000 for each account with a beneficiary or a sibling. Some states have yet to adopt these new enhancements, so I always deflect to my cohorts here. I would say Randy would know exactly what's pertinent to your state if you have any questions on some of those more minute ways that you can use your 529 contributions. Myth number 2, 529, if I don't use it, will I lose it? No, that is totally a myth. The money is yours, so no matter what happens. For example, say you have a student who doesn't attend college at all, or they didn't spend the entire account down to 0 through their education. You have the flexibility as the owner of the 529 account to transfer those assets to another family member, or even yourself, if you were so inclined, could go back to school and use those assets yourself. There's 3 other areas, sort of options, if you will, that you can use these outside of a traditional college plan. 1, you can use funds for private elementary or high school. Now, this is specifically for our folks on our call today, any folks who live outside of Illinois. I repeat, so if you live outside of Illinois, you can actually put up to $10,000 toward tuition that can be withdrawn per student per year, free of federal taxes for either private elementary or high school. Again, outside of Illinois, specifically that is state by state. Number 2, you can keep the account in the original beneficiary's name. This is the idea I gave to my brother. With 4 kids, he's bound to have an electrician in the mix. So we talked about keeping the account in the original beneficiary's name. So keep the account in the original beneficiary's name. Now, how would this work? So the money can go toward college or graduate school later in life for that individual, or it could be transferred to the next generation. So in this idea, in this example, my parents started a 529 plan for my older brother, Jimmy Knowles. They keep it in Jimmy's name, although he doesn't decide to go to college himself. Eventually, down the line, with that tax-free growth, he can transfer those assets and transfer that plan to my beautiful niece, Brooklyn. So you can move it down generation by generation. Number 3, probably not the #1 idea of why we would use 529 plans, but you can make a non-qualified withdrawal. And so again, you're not going to necessarily lose it if you don't use it. So if you want the money back, you would owe taxes. There could be a 10% penalty on any investment gains, but the dollars you put in are never going to be taxed or penalized when taking it out. So the question often that comes up here is, what if my child or my grandchild gets scholarship money? Well, if your child got scholarship money, you could use a 529 plan to pay qualified expenses not covered by that scholarship. Obviously, you can make non-qualified withdrawals equal to the scholarship amount without penalties through income taxes, but again, more involved, and I would touch base with Randy or David if one of those situations seems pertinent on the non-qualified withdrawal side. Not necessarily the point of the 529 plan. Myth number 3, opening and contributing money to a 529 plan will make it harder to receive financial aid. Technically, this is true. This is a fact. You know, if there was any attorneys on the call, I'd say it this way. To the letter of the law, it's absolutely true. It can affect and actually limit financial aid, but practically the effects are minimal. And I'd say in the spirit of the law, the answer is closer to no effect whatsoever. So here's why I'll work through a point and giving away the answer on the screen here, but the money saved in a 529 plan is generally going to be reported as a parental asset on FAFSA. FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. I'm familiar with that one from just a few years ago. But 529 savings only reduce your eligibility for need-based aid by 5.64%. 5.64%. So if you save $10,000 in a 529 plan, your need-based aid would be reduced by $564 at the most. From $10,000 at most, your need-based aid would be reduced by just $564. This is hugely favorable when you look at other student or parental assets. Those are roughly counted at 20%, up to 20%. So again, 529 plans, the reduction is up to 5.64%, or roughly a quarter of the impact of other assets that would count toward the FAFSA calculation. Excuse me. All right, myth number 4. 529 contributions are limited to your annual gift tax exclusion, which is just at $15,000 per year. Now, bear with me. This is probably the meatiest part of our presentation today. This is not necessarily true. This is completely a myth when you think about it from a planning perspective. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's called super funding. So I want to walk you through what's called the 5-year gift tax averaging. 5-year gift tax averaging is a key benefit of 529 college savings plans. 5-year gift tax averaging lets you contribute 5 times as much money to a 529 plan in a single year. 5 times the contribution in just 1 year. So there are a few tricks here. So again, I would really recommend, if this is something you're interested in that you could afford or that you're looking to, talk to Randy, talk to David. They can make sure that this crucial step is put together for you. But a 5-year gift tax averaging is also known as super funding, which, as a former comic book nerd, candidly, I just prefer super funding over 5-year tax averaging. So with super funding, each contributor to a 529 college savings plan can actually lump together their contributions. Again, 5 years of contributions in just 1 year. So $15,000 is technically the gifting limit for any individual in any individual year. But $15,000 times 5 is $75,000 that you could contribute at once. That's for an individual. You're talking $150,000 for couples that file jointly. Important to think about tax purposes for you, the contributor here. The contributions are spread evenly over a 5-year period, starting with the current calendar year. So the lump sum contribution can use all or part of the annual gift tax exclusion for the beneficiary for the same year and that 5-year period. For example, probably easier if I just walk you through actual numbers here. you know, if a grandparents were to give $150,000 to each grandchild, the grant in 1 year, they would not be able to contribute in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, or 2024. It would be considered one contribution that was spread evenly over the next 5 years. The benefit to the student, the benefit to the count, $150,000 will go to work immediately, begin growing and getting invested and helping them reach their super funded goal down the road. Fifth myth before we wrap things up today, and hopefully we're right on schedule, Randy. I may be a moment or two over 10 minutes, so I apologize. Myth number 5, 529 assets are protected from creditors. This is actually state dependent. In Illinois and South Carolina, Randy, please correct me if I'm wrong here, you can protect assets, all of your assets in a 529 plan from bankruptcy or creditors. You know, another note that comes up quite a bit, kind of a similar concept around asset protection or limiting tax liabilities is in regard to trusts. You know, if you have an existing trust or you've considered creating one, yes, a trust, your family's trust, can actually be the owner of that 529 plan, which may limit income tax liability across the board. You know, some 529s though, you're going to only accept contributions from certain sources, the owner, the parent, the grandparent. So again, best to check with Randy and just double check the Future Scholar Program 529 from Columbia Threadneedle would have this option available. I am told we absolutely do. So in closing, let me just start where I started. You know, it's 529 plans are a qualified tuition savings plan that's going to provide you and your children with a smarter way to plan for their college education. There are tax advantages, gifting and estate planning benefits, there's flexibility and control. 529 plans have become the most popular tool for a reason. We appreciate your support, Randy and David, on using Columbia's, but if not Columbia's or one pertinent to your state, your children, your grandchildren, and your beneficiaries will appreciate those 529 assets. Trust me, I graduated with mostly student loans, so I can speak to that specifically. Randy, I'll pass it off to you. I really appreciate your time today. And again, any questions that you might have, we'll get them answered right away if you can pass them along to Randy today.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone, for coming on. I will tell you, like I said, this is the first one of these that we've done. We're now 2 minutes over our 15 minutes that we promised everybody. I appreciate it. I think that it's very difficult, as I'm sure you guys know, to squeeze everything into 15 minutes without feeling like you're drinking from a fire hose. So with that being said, we're always available, as you know, certainly for everyone on this call. We know that we've had multiple conversations with all of you about this topic and many others. So feel free to reach out. I hope you've received your coffee gift card. Thank you, Justin. And hopefully I see some of us are enjoying our coffee at the time. We appreciate you being here. And if you have questions, please reach out. If we don't hear from you soon, you'll, I'm sure, hear from us. But thank you very much, Justin. We'll wrap this up. And everyone have a great rest of your day and have a great 529 College Savings Day, especially the day before. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy.